probably met just about everybody in here at one time or another. And if I don't remember you, I apologize, because I meet a lot of people. I went all over this country speaking about the Constitution, the restoration of it, bringing our country back to the lawful form of government that our founders bequeathed to us. But I want to start with the beginning. Back in 1215, the people had had enough of the king at that time. So they fought a battle and they won. Therefore came the Magna Carta. It showed what the people could do if the king oppressed or tyrannized the people in any manner. And that's in the Magna Carta. I carry it with me. I also carry U.S. versus Williams in this same booklet. It's really important because Justice Scalia laid out the U.S. versus Williams case in 1992. And he said that the grand jury is the fourth branch of government, belonging exclusively to the people, a fourth branch, if you will. And he laid out what we can do using the grand jury. But now let's go back. The Florida statutes, of course, we know that we acquired a constitution beginning in 1836 and came forward to about 1846. And it was never written by the people or delegates of the people in Florida. Now, I study other state constitutions as well, but I'm going to focus on Florida today. I've been in Florida for 5 years. So since I made this my home, I feel it my duty to do what I can to help restore the government in this, the proper government, lawful government in this state. But that being said, there was 4 foreign agents and lawyers who wrote the first Constitution for Florida. There's been 5 constitutions written since then, last one in 1968. Every time it's done by lawyers. This year, there's a Constitutional Revision Commission being established right now, which will revise the Florida Constitution again. And most of them are lawyers. Now, why would we want lawyers to write what we ourselves should be doing? We should be getting together and coming together in these assemblies and saying, no, you're not going to do that because you don't have the authority. We never granted you the power. The power belongs to the people. You know, Article 1, Section 1 of the Florida Constitution says very clearly, all power, it says all political power. Political means government. All political power is inherent in the people, and all free governments. Now, I'm going to go to the Pennsylvania Constitution, 1776, and show you the difference, okay? What they did in Florida, from there, they started, and I started to say it, and I apologize for that, because the first Constitution I studied was Pennsylvania, 1776. And it goes on and it says all power is inherent in the people, and all free governments are founded on their authority. Now let's go back to the Declaration because it preceded everything else. So we go back to the Declaration of Independence and it says governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to reform, alter, or abolish it, and to create new government, laying the foundation on principles most likely to achieve these ends. I don't want to overthrow our Constitution. You know, it's a document that keeps us free. I don't care what those people were or what they did back then. All I know is they gave us a freedom document, and we have to pick it up and use it. And I believe in that document. I believe in it because it comes from us, it holds us in power. Then down further in the first page of the Declaration, it says, but when a long train of tyranny and usurpation evinces a design to reduce us under absolute despotism, it is our right, it is our duty to throw off such government and create new guards for our future security. That's what we're doing here. You know, we're not here to overthrow the government. We're not here to harm anybody. We want government rolled back to constitutional Republican form of government guaranteed under Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution. A Republican form of government does not elect representatives to go to the capital of the state or into Congress and make any rule they want to and call it law. Because where does law come from? Law comes from the lawgiver. God is the creator. He is the one that created everything, including us. And He bequeathed us with freedom. And whenever that document was created, the Constitution was created, well, He created us. It makes us sovereign. He's sovereign over us. It makes us sovereign over them. But we have to control them. We did create them. But we have to control them. And if we don't control them, we deserve what we get. I'm going to tell you a little short story here. In 1892, a fellow by the name of Francis Bellamy was elected or nominated by someone as the head of the National Education Administration. He and his cousin Scott took constitutional teaching out of the schools. George Washington said right off, study the Constitution, let it be taught in homes, schools, churches, colleges, and synagogues, and preach it from the pulpit. Let it become the fundamental principle which all free governments are founded. Here is our responsibility. Are we teaching the Constitution? Do we know it? And I hear a lot of well-educated minds in here speaking about different things, and I really appreciate it because it tells me you've taken the time to read stuff. And I hope you'll continue to do it. And I hope you'll continue to love this country and to defend it against those who will change it. And they have changed it, and it's to bar people who have done it. They're a tool being used by those who want to destroy this nation because the only bastion of freedom is right here in America, in these United States. And if they destroy that, it's gone. Jefferson warned us about it. Freedom once lost is lost forever. You can never regain it. If we still have that thread of freedom, but we have to add more threads to it. We have to make it strong. We have to make it so they can't take it from us. And we start by controlling government servants. They're our servants, they're not our master. Then the Constitution comes forward, and it delegates Article 1, power to the Congress, to the two houses. It also then, Article 2, delegates 6 powers to the President, 20 to the Congress, 6 to the President, and 11 to the judiciary. I'm not going to go as deep into things that I do teach here today with you guys. I probably could from hearing you talk. But for those who are not as educated as some of you are, I'm not going to at this point because it's too much too fast. And we have to take our time and do things so that people comprehend it, or it's to no avail at all. But the Constitution also put a supremacy clause in Article 6, Clause 2. And it says very clearly, this Constitution and the laws which shall be made in the pursuance thereof. That means every law that's made in this country, state or federal, must be made according to the U.S. Constitution, and it must be in obedience to it. And treaties made of which shall be made under the authority of the United States. That meant treaties are granted, the power to make treaties are granted to the President to do by the authority of the people. Where is the authority in the Constitution? Could they then, let's say, could one of the presidents who gets elected, I don't care who it is, I want you to know something too, I'm not partisan. I don't believe in political parties. That being said, I'm neither, okay? I'm a patriot, I love America. But could they go and make a treaty with the United Nations or any other country, well that's not a country, but any country, to take away your right to keep and bear arms? No, they couldn't because we did not give them that power. How do we know it? The Second Amendment is very clear. We need to study the words. We need to be very careful when we read and study these things to make sure we're getting it right. Because it says a well-regulated militia, comma, being necessary to a free state, comma. What does that tell us? Every man or woman in this room is militia if you're between the ages of 15 and 45, and in writing this document that I proposed as a working document to each county sets forth that any man or woman who chooses to can participate in the militia according to their ability. You know, I'm 70 years old. There's a lot of things I can still do. If I can volunteer and help to do things in some way, I'm most happy to do that. Every one of us should be doing that. I'll tell you something else. We should be studying the court system. We shouldn't go blindly into a courtroom and be injured by those who will injure you just because they believe they can and you don't know any better. You know, there's court rules. Someone mentioned a while ago about what happened in 1946. I was born in 1946. It's kind of special to me. The presentment was not eliminated out of the rules of court. It was not taken away from the people. The word presentment was written out of Rule 6 or 7. I don't remember which one it is. The person who does the writing, I can't think of the name of it right now, wrote the word out and did it purposely. So now they believe that presentment prevents the grand juries. No, it doesn't. The grand juries, the Fifth Amendment says very clearly, and that's the rights of the people, that it says they cannot touch any of your rights. We didn't even surrender one right to the government. Not even one. It says very clearly that no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime. An infamous crime is any crime, unless on presentment or indictment by a grand jury. We should not be permitting these courts to drag you in there without a jury of your peers, the people in your community who are listening to you, 12 of them. 12 of them chosen by the grand jury, not by the prosecutor, or not by the court clerk. But 12 people who know you, who know your character. And you come in there and they know whether or not you would do those kind of things. But the grand jury themselves look at it and say, well, hold on a minute here. This guy didn't injure anybody. You may not like what he did, but he didn't injure anybody. So you don't have a case. They hand down a no bill. It's over. No one can review it. The jury, when the jury decides that you're innocent instead of not guilty, you're innocent until proven guilty. And if they decide you're innocent, it's over. Seventh Amendment says nobody can review that case. That according to the rules of the common law. So what rules do you want for your county? What rules do you want exercised in your county? This is where you hold the power. The people hold all power. We are so strong that we just can't comprehend how strong we are when we come together and make a decision. These people who are wearing the badges and the guns and everything else are our servants, and they are not to oppress us in any manner. So it's time that we stand up. It's time that we take it back. That supremacy clause goes forward and says, under the authority of the United States, it's the 50 states. You got the United States. You got the United States of America. You got there's 4 different United States that the Supreme Court has ruled on. But let me tell you something that the Supreme Court did in 1795. The case of Van Horn, D.C. versus Dorrance, 2 U.S. 304. Go look it up and read it. It was one of the first cases I ever read. My head swelled so big I didn't think I was going to fit it through the door after I read that case. It said the Supreme Court cannot interpret the Constitution. It can lay the statute or congressional act beside the Constitution and decide if the act is consistent with the Constitution, but it can't do the other way around. Early on, people who knew what they had created made that decision. Courts don't want anything after 1938 to come into their courts. It's because they phonily, erroneously, I'll say, ruled on Erie versus Tompkins, Erie Railroad versus Tompkins, claiming that they have the discretionary power to do all these things that they don't have the power to do. They nullified the rule of stare decisis, which is court precedent, or someone call it case law. There's no such thing as case law. Courts are not given the authority to make law. Guiding precedent, stare decisis, that's it. But then it goes on in the supremacy clause, and shall be the supreme law of the land, and judges in every state shall be bound thereby to contrary notwithstanding. Meaning, in spite of the state constitutions, in spite of the state statutes, codes, and ordinances, the U.S. Constitution is the supremacy, the supreme law of this land. That makes a land jurisdiction. I want to tell you just a little bit about Article 3, Section 2, Clause 1. It sets forth 4 jurisdictions for the courts. The very first, it says the judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity. Law is the common law. Equity is contract law. And they're forcing contracts down our throat every day. They're telling you you have to have a marriage license, you have to have a hunting license, fishing license, license to travel in your automobile, license to do business in your profession, license to do commerce. You've got to have a license. You've got to get their permission and pay them a permit fee for everything that you choose to do. That's unconstitutional. Those rights have been ruled on by the Supreme Court and said those statutes are unconstitutional. You know. Now, here we are, the state legislature, I saw it on the news about 2 or 3 days ago, is talking about doing away with the driver's license. Well, why not do away with all of it? Why does the state want to take your automobile and then require you to have insurance, have a driver's license, have a registration, maybe an inspection and all this other stuff? We're all liable individually for what we do. If you harm somebody, you hold that liability for them. I recommend insurance. I recommend competency. I have a crippled wife at home from 1980 who we got hit head on by a guy who was drunk out of his mind. Came across 4 lanes and hit us straight on. What good did their mini tort insurance do for her or for me? Now, I don't hold a personal grudge against the system. I hold a grudge against the system that is unlawful. Because that man should have been indentured to her for the rest of her life. She suffers every day of her life, and I know there's plenty of other people. I just use her as an example. You know, every day of her life she has to tolerate pain. Constantly taking painkillers to try and make life livable. And he walks free. How did government protect her? How did government protect me and the rest of my family? How about you? How do they protect you? You know, we created government for one purpose and one purpose only, to protect our rights, not to take them from us, not to benefit themselves while they're using that office, but to protect our rights and not abuse that office, not abuse that authority. I spent a lot of time writing this county constitution that I'm proposing as a working document. You take it into your counties and you bring people together. In Marion County, I told them 5 years ago, I spoke before the county commissioners in a Tea Party meeting. I said, I'm going to tell you folks something. From what I've read and what I've seen since I've been here, Marion County is about to change. I know one person can do a lot. Can't do everything, but you can do a lot. And I said, you people get ready because Marion County is going to change. And I set about doing things. A little while later, I met Roger. Roger was interested in what I was talking about, so he started reading and studying. And he's come a long, long ways. And I hear a lot of the rest of you who've come a long ways. But you know, folks, we've got a long ways to go. Here's what I did. I created a newspaper. I just put this newspaper out yesterday. We put out about 200 copies. We got 200 more we're putting out for our meetings in Marion County, for the people to come together in assembly and figure out what you want to do. This, what I wrote, is not written in stone. It's a working document. In 2009, Dan here and myself, I was from Pennsylvania, he's from Florida, we met in the Continental Congress in St. Charles, Illinois. I thought I knew something when I went there, but let me tell you, I found out how dumb I was. There were some very educated people there who taught me a lesson, a very valuable lesson that I wouldn't trade for anything. Because I got an insight as to what the founders went through when they created the Constitution. Somebody had written a document we worked on, right, Dan? And they put it up on the screen. And we followed Robert's Rules of Order, parliamentary procedure, in adopting that thing. And we amended and amended and amended and amended. It seemed like we were never going to get done with one part of it because amendments would go on and on with different ideas and different people. But that's a good thing. And you will usually come to the right consensus in the end, and whenever the article gets accepted, it's a good article, the same way the founders did in our Constitution. I've read and studied for over 30 years, and I'm happy that I've done it. It's not been a waste of time. I have spent most, if not all, you might say, of my funds that I've earned throughout my life, throughout my career in doing this, and I'm happy to do it. And I would do it again. I would do it because of freedom, for freedom's sake only, nothing else. That we can all remain free. We have the right to do anything we please as long as we don't interfere with someone else or harm someone else. Mm-hmm. This is what this is all about. This is why I suggested to Roger, we were meeting. Roger's a tough guy, I'm telling you, he beats me to a pulp sometimes. but he does it to make me think. And out of good, solid thinking comes good ideas. But we were talking about doing a state constitutional convention. That would be enormous. I don't think we could raise enough funds to do that at this point. And then it dawned on me, wait a minute, Hagan, we have the right of self-governance. We govern ourselves according to the law of God. We don't even need government. But we know that that's not happening, so we do need that protection. So we created that protector. And we created the three branches and the system of justice. It's not just to go into court and the court does everything opposite of what the Constitution says, because it benefits the Bar Association. It benefits them. I did an investigation similar to what Roger did in Marion County, and I found that they have $150 million. They're raising taxes. And they have $150 million that they invest in the stock market overnight, every night. We want them to put in a sidewalk. There's a Mexican community right by where I live, and at night when it's raining and dark, they're wearing dark clothes, and some of the black people, you can't see them, for crying out loud. I've almost hit 2 of them already, so I started hacking on the county commissioner, put a sidewalk in here. They said, we'll put it in, but we got to find the money. I said, I can help you. That $150 million that you invest every night, take a little portion of it and build that sidewalk for the security of these people. That's your duty. That's your job. And you know, these people are nice people. I rough them up a little bit when I'm talking to them in the meetings. We go to those meetings very regular, and we expose what's going on that shouldn't be. But I have the utmost respect for them. They're nice people. They're just like most of us. They don't know anything about this great country of ours. And they're benefiting tremendously from it. So they don't want to do any of these things. Okay? So one more thing I want to tell you about is the Florida Constitution. Now, I told you that I studied the court system too. One of the best things that I know of that you can do if you've got to go into court is know the rules of service and the rules of evidence. If you know those and you go in there, you will beat 90% of the lawyers. Because lawyers do not follow the process. And the judges let them do it. If you don't object to what they're doing, they'll let them do it and get away with it. So in studying the rules of evidence, which I did in Pennsylvania, they're almost the same in every state. There's not much difference in them. I wrote a little paragraph, and I'm going to send it to Roger and ask Roger to post it on the website. The little paragraph says simply this, and this is the rules of evidence. It helps you without having to remember all the words and all the numbers and everything. It says, a known duty, the breach of which is a causation of damages, as attested to by one competent witness testifying under oath, subject to cross-examination regarding the authentication of documents. You know those rules, and you go in on a bank foreclosure of your home, for example. The lawyer comes in there and he has filed an action against you claiming to represent, let's say, Wells Fargo Bank. And you go in there and the only person sitting over there at that prosecution table or the plaintiff's table is the lawyer. I just looked over. Interesting. And when the judge gets the court started, what say you, Mr. Prosecutor, prove the case? Objection, Judge. On what grounds? Well, Mr. Attorney over here has never provided me with a contract between him and Wells Fargo Bank, for one. I don't see a witness over there anywhere. Does he have a witness here from Wells Fargo to authenticate the documents that he put into this court? The judge looks at him. What say you, Mr. Attorney? Well, Judge, he starts making all these excuses. Judge, he doesn't have it. If he had it, he would present it right now. I'll give him the opportunity to present it. He's supposed to give it to me before we come in here. And he didn't. He's done. His goose is cooked. My next statement is, Judge, would you have the bell to take the prosecutor into custody and put him in jail for submitting fraud upon this court? You see, you hold the power, and it's fun, it really is. But you feel that power that you have within yourself, because the law is on your side. Whenever we say law, what do we mean by law? The delegated powers coming from the people through these documents. And then whenever they create these rules of court, fine. I don't agree with them, but I'm going to use them against you. I know that you have no right. Let me tell you something else. The founders did not intend for us to lose our interest in property. So if you buy a home and you pay $100,000 for it and you apply for a loan at the bank, now you know the bank has you fill out the applications, and then they have you, well, you know, how much, we need 20% down, right? What else do you have for collateral? Well, we need you to sign on that too. So you may wind up with $100,000 interest in that property, and that's all you're borrowing. Because if you don't pay it, if you default on that, they take it and sell the house, and you get nothing. They take everything you've got. The founder said no to that. No. You cannot be deceased of your freehold estate. A freehold estate is everything you own. So you file a claim into the record when you, the day after you sign on the dotted line, file a claim for the amount that you have invested in that property into the record. It's a common law lien. Now the title is clouded, and only you can release it. The only thing that supersedes the common law lien is a mechanic's lien, the guy that built the house and you didn't pay him. That's the only lien that supersedes yours. It isn't the bank. Because the bank don't loan you anything. They borrow your credit, they monetize it, they print the money, and then they loan it to you tenfold. And I won't go any further with that. But we the people hold the power. First Amendment, the right of the people to peaceably assemble. Article 1, Section 5, the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to instruct their government. We're not to ask them, we're not to request from them, we're to instruct them. And we should do it. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wind it up. If you have any questions, I'll attempt to answer them. I'll give a couple minutes for answering questions, if that's all right, buddy. Yeah. But I encourage you to do your part and preserve freedom for yourselves and your children and your grandchildren. I've got both. Matter of fact, I've got some great-grandchildren now. And I don't want to see them not know the law of this land and to be tyrannized and oppressed by those who will take for themselves just because they can. Thank you.
Can I ask a specific question about evidence?
Sure.
Have you ever seen a code enforcement court or been in a code enforcement court?
No, sir, I have not, because I stopped it before. I didn't talk about that. I stopped it before it ever gets there.
Well, they show these pictures. They show pictures. And they call it evidence.
Yeah.
And they always ask the people, "Do you accept this evidence?" And they always say yes. With the
They ask
picture,
what?
they ask them if they accept the evidence of the pictures that they took of their property. And they
Yeah.
always just say yes. My question is, what if you just say no?
You should say no.
Just say no. Right?
Yeah, it's an invasion of your rights.
Yeah. Just say no.
Yeah. You have the right to be secure there.
And then what would happen?
It's a deprivation of rights when they do
It's a
that.
totally fake court, just more fake than the regular courts even.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
So what would happen if they said no? Would that pretty much mess up the whole thing for the code enforcement? If they said
Well,
no?
I can't really say because that's
all made up.
speculation as to what they'll do in there.
It's all made up.
But you have to be ready. I call it tying all together, and you have to be ready to dance. I just tell them it's not my first dance. I've danced with a lot of real pretty girls, and you're not one of them. Somebody else?
Yeah, my name is Anna. I'm with Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I agree with what you're saying. There's so many victimless crime, so-called laws on the books. It's outrageous. In my opinion, I call it policing for profit. That's why I started the group, because it's just completely out of control. What are some of the steps that we can stop this? I mean, they're pulling people over for victimless crimes. Then they violate their rights by, going through their car. I mean, it's just endless. There's this, Florida is so bad. They literally have a saying, "Come on vacation, leave on probation." It's funny, but it's not. Did you know that Florida?
How about getting arrested for resisting arrest?
Oh, that's the best.
I love that.
Yeah, that's insane.
Without violence?
Yeah. So
They do it every time, but go ahead.
I've been doing this for 3.5 years, and because it happened to me, I experienced the Sherman County Sheriff corruption. But Florida's in the top 10 for prisons, jails, just outrage, convictions for anything and everything. I mean, I'm 51. I'm from I'm in the 1980s high school up in Michigan, and I used to partake, with marijuana, speeders, acid, all that, right? What they're doing to kids now, right here in Florida, in Charlotte County, if you have even a little piece of bud, you're in jail, you have a record, it's completely insane and out of control. What are some of the steps that we can start to stop this?
Okay. The very first thing, like I said, I didn't want to get real far into this, but
Right.
The very first thing that I recommend you do, and I've been doing this for a long time, way back in 1986, I was building a commercial building, and I had bought a piece of commercial property. Had an old house, it was an old motel, little shanties and stuff. I tore them all down, and I wanted to build because I didn't have a retirement. I was self-employed. So I wanted to build that building, and they wouldn't give me a building permit. I said, it's fine, I don't need it anyway. So I built it anyway. So they sent the cop to order me to cease and desist. And I'm up on the roof, put shingles on, and he yells up to me to cease. I says, no. As a matter of fact, you're trespassing on my property, get off. And I had signs of trespassing. And as a matter of fact, it's defined trespass, which is both a felony under Title 18 of the state laws, and it's also a felony under the United States Code's Title 18. And I said, you either get off, or I will see to it that you leave, even if it's feet first. So he said, you threatened me. I said, hold on just a minute. I pulled out my phone. I think I had one of those next telephones where it's a two-way radio and a phone. And I called the state police and I said, I've got a township police officer who found trespassing on my property. If he's not gone in 5 minutes, I'm going to shoot him.
Oh.
They said, oh God, don't do that. They said, who is the officer? And I told them. So they called him on his phone and told him, get off that property, get off there now. So he did, he left. And then I went to the township and I filed a criminal complaint against him. The township. And then what he did was he started following my boys around because we had a construction business. And he started following them around, and he would get right on their bumper, but he wouldn't pull them over. And so did the other cops in the township too. So every time they did it, I told my boys, just give me a call, get me on the two-way radio, and I'll meet you at the township. So we had a stack of complaints probably about 3 inches high. So one night I said to the supervisor, the chairman of the supervisory board, I said, Mr. Ward, I have all these, and I held him up, all these complaints on these police officers here for intimidation and harassment. And what have you done about it? Or you haven't said anything in the meetings. He said, we don't have to. He said, we do that in executive committee or executive action in private. And he said, that's not open to the public. I said, yes, it is. I'm an injured party, and so are my children. I said, and so you're not going to do anything, and you're not going to tell me if you have done anything. He said, it's none of your business. I said, okay. So I went to the court, and I filed a criminal complaint against the township supervisors as third-party defendants and all of the cops. And I took them to court, and I beat them. The judge listened to what was going on, and at that time, I didn't know the rules of court. Okay, I wasn't going to take it anymore. So what I said to the judge was, after I laid out my case, this judge they brought in was like 90 years old. He couldn't, one step up, he couldn't even get up. The girls had to help him up on that step. But he was mentally sharp. This guy hadn't lost a step mentally. And he sat there, leaning back in that chair like this here, looking at me, and I thought, this guy's going to tear me to pieces, So I felt really threatened by him. So when I finished, I said, Judge, I want to tell you something. I don't know anything about the court rules or the etiquette in the court like a lawyer. I'm not a professional. I said, but I want to tell you something. My family, I have the duty to protect. And the only peaceful means that I have is to come here because the township won't do anything. So I brought it here to the last peaceful means of solving the problem. And if you don't protect me and my family, I will. You understand me? looked at me like, I said, oh boy. Then he turned to them and he said, he's right, you know. You're not allowed within 500 yards of any member of his family from the state home. And so they did, after that, they never bothered us. And they would walk across the street to shake my hand and say hello and stuff. And the judges was the same way. The judges wouldn't give me the time of the day, but I kept pursuing. I wouldn't quit. I just kept pursuing and learning. And I began to beat these people in court every time. If you know the rules, you know what you're doing, you'll beat them in court. And I urge you strongly to learn those things that I talked about before to try and beat them.
I think one must also understand that the whole idea of the United States was to get away from the imperial system.
Amen.
Where
Amen.
little rules tripped up everybody, and those that were friends with the king or the ones with the power could get away with murder or break the law, do whatever. And that is unfortunately what has been happening here, is that people get tripped up with lots of little things that they can start controlling you. But the big things, the things where it really matters, due process, equality, and so on, is not happening because the friends, I think that, to me, at least in my personal experience, it is like the government have declared themselves king, and we the people are nothing.
Yes.
Yep.
And it's an imperialist system, and I speak of absolute certainty because I can show it in cases that I've had through federal courts and everywhere here. That basically the law is not followed, due process is not followed, the supremacy clause is violated. When you invoke the supremacy clause, it is a duty upon the court to first compare the conduct against the Constitution, completely ignored. So what I have experienced is an extremely abusive imperialist system with no regard whatsoever for we the people.
No true protection.
Yeah, let me say this, in this, just a second, Bob. In this proposed constitution, I have put that in there. I put the process of law in here. It's long, okay? It's not short. It's not, you have the right to be heard, okay? That's what they want you to think. You have the right to a hearing, you have the right to be heard. And I've had many judges say that. And that opens the door for quite a dialogue between me and the judge when that happens. And I enjoy doing it. But let me say this. Okay? Never ever let a police encounter go without filing a complaint. If you're wrong, step up and admit it. Do whatever has to be done because our rules and regulation, like the speed limits on the road and things like that, are there for our safety. Government can regulate for health, safety, morals, and commerce. You know, gambling is immoral, but don't they do it? There's all kinds of things that are immoral, but they do it. They don't care. It's revenue raising.
Yep.
So file a complaint against them every time, but make sure you know what you're talking about when you do it, okay? Because you have the right to free speech. You know, I know of a case where a guy, and this was on television too, this guy, this lawyer, was representing his client. And the judge said to him, he said, you know, he said, you're about the worst lawyer I've ever seen. You came in here and did not prepare for your client's defense. And the lawyer got ticked off about that, and he said some very expletives to the judge. You so-and-so, you're railroading my GD client right into the jailhouse. And the judge held him in contempt, threw him in jail. Well, you know what happened? He sued the judge, and he won. The judge had to pay big. So the freedom of speech is a tremendous thing. I don't recommend using foul language. I try not to. I used to a lot, but I try not to use it. I have to be really angry to use foul words. But I recommend that you know, in a respectful manner, and always end your writing with submitted, respectfully submitted with all rights reserved. That's a law. When you say all rights reserved, you're now ensured your rights. And they cannot treat you the way they do that you're expressing in the courts. Bob.
Talk about open doors and everything and stepping in and getting caught in a trap. Most everybody's familiar with summons, aren't you?
Yeah.
You know when you get a summons, you have a hesitation. Well, what's this all about? You want to answer. And you step into that courtroom.
Yeah.
But that summons, Judge David Wayne Miller has proven that every single summons that is written by the clerk of court, not by the judge, is a fraud. Now, if you go into that courtroom and you answer to a fraud, you are theirs.
Yes.
But the first thing with a summons, if you don't answer it, you're not stepping in their courtroom.
You don't even have to accept it.
No, you don't have to accept it.
I've got.
As a deputy, I could drop serve it to you, and you don't have to sign it, but the deputy's gonna say that he drop served it.
I don't care.
Yeah, no, I don't either. That's what I'm trying to get
I didn't
at.
accept
But don't answer it. And eventually, I've done that. What they end up doing is put a judgment against me, put a lien on my property, all under total fraud.
Yeah. Well,
I
I'm
got it
gonna give them that opportunity. The first inclination that I get that they're doing something like that, I will file criminal complaints against them immediately. And I'll name every one of them, okay? Roger was at my house one day when this process server was trying to serve me, and I wouldn't even go out. The next, he did come back another time to serve me, and I was just leaving. I was just heading out to go to the store or something. And he pulls in my gate and locked me. And he got out and come over, and he says, I've got a summons for you. And I says, for who? He said, for you. I said, who is you? I don't know anyone with that name. He said, well, this says Hagan Smith. He said, you Hagan Smith? I said, who wants to know? I said, matter of fact, did you see those signs on the gate when you came in? They specifically named you. Do you realize you just committed defiant trespass? You're now under my authority. I can do anything to you that I want to. You're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney. If you can't afford one, one will be appointed for you. Anything you say can and will be used against you in court of law. Do you understand what I just said? So you can't arrest me. I got a summons here signed by a judge. I said, I just did. I got out my phone and I called the sheriff. The sheriff wouldn't come get him. So I told the sheriff, I says, okay, I'm going to release him to leave my property. But I'm not releasing him from the arrest. And it's your duty to take him into custody and prosecute him. Now, if you don't, it's neglect of duty. I'm going to have to add you in as an additional defendant in a criminal nature. So you can do all these things. It takes courage. You know, you can't be weak-kneed, because if you are, nothing will happen.
I'll just add to that. When the process server, they have process servers now. Sheriffs usually process serve, or they have private process server. But one of the things you can ask the sheriff is, how do you know that that's me on that document when it's all caps names?
Yeah.
And if you're going to trust yourself and prove that that's me, you are becoming part of the fraud, Officer Jones.
That's a bigger subject that I didn't want to get into. I know what you're saying, and you are right. But, you know, I prefer to stick strictly from the beginning in what I say, because there's a ton. We could be here forever. But I want to try to keep it just to the things that you really need to know.
But the answer that Andrew was really looking for, and I think we're all here for, is by all means, the only way we're going to do anything about all the crookedness that's going on in the court system and in the law enforcement is the assemblies of the people. If you don't have a group of people together convincing other people and getting bigger and bigger and bigger, you're not going to have any strength.
Let me say this, because there's one thing I didn't say because of something that, I don't know your name.
Mike.
Mike, there was something that you said that perked my ears up before. You know, this is not unlawful. It is totally lawful, and I think you iterated that. This is totally lawful what we're doing, and they cannot interfere with it. And whenever we in assembly do a resolution, and it gets done by the proper process of an assembly, and the chairman signs it, it gets served on them. Whoever it is that's giving you a problem, it gets served on them. And it gets served on the judges. And it gets served in the public record with the court clerk. And if it's a criminal complaint, serve that in there also, and then take it to the sheriff. Not only that, but like this Constitution, we have every right under the rule of self-governance to create a county constitution to our pleasure. And once it's done, we serve it in all of those places, on every government official in the county, and you take it over to the state Supreme Court, and you file it in there also. Make sure Mr. LaBarga gets it. He's a squirrel. I can tell you. I addressed them. Roger was there with me. I think Roger did too, up there in Lake City. And the one judge followed me out. I didn't know him, Judge Parker. And when I'm walking out the door, I heard somebody calling my name, And I turned around, I thought it was Roger. It didn't sound like him, but I thought it was who it was. Here was that judge. And he said, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" I said, "Sure. What do you want?" He said, "I have never heard anybody speak the way you do." He said, "You make sense. I just want to shake your hand and tell you I will never see things the same again after tonight." See, you can have a tremendous influence on these people. I had a judge one day want to tell you something that you may not like. This might perk your ears up. If you're registered to vote, the very first question on the registration says, "Are you a citizen of the United States of America?" Then in the instructions it tells you, it used to tell you right in that block, if you answer no to this question, you cannot register to vote. It doesn't tell you you can't vote. Voting is a right. It's not a privilege. James Madison in Federalist 52 explained it. It's Article 1, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution. It says, in part, "And the electors in each state shall be, or shall have the qualifications requisite of the electors of the motionless branch of the state legislatures." They have to swear an oath to support, protect, and defend the Constitution. They have to know the Constitution. They can't even run for office until they're an elector. To become an elector, number one, you have to know our Constitution. Go read Federalist 52, the first page and the first paragraph on the second page. Madison explained it. It doesn't sound like it's what it is, but voting is a right. We created it. We hire them, so we have our process. Each one of us have the right to vote without registration. People say, "Well, how are you going to prevent all these people from registering? That's illegal." Very easy. We got thumbprints, we got iris scans, we got all kinds of things. But guess what? Government does not have the authority to regulate it. It's us. We have to regulate it. You know, we got cats, rats, dogs, snakes, and everything else voting today. So how are we really getting the government that we want? You know, it's gotten corrupt because we've allowed the corruption. Did someone else have a question?
Yeah, I want to make a comment, you know, in the context of family law. One thing that I've run into quite a bit is debtor's prison.
Yeah.
And practically every state that I know of uses it day in, day out, all day long. And I have run into that quite a bit. And I also run into a lot of people, without even trying, that have been involved in family law. And usually when you run into child support, eventually there's going to be debtor's prison. And so what I have done, through my experience, when they start talking about enforcing these support amounts or fines or fees or whatever, financially, with jail, then I do whatever I can to get the heck out of state court, because what they are doing right there, they are threatening a constitutional process. And this is going on all day long. It's not rare, it's used commonly. And here's an example. Walter Scott up in South Carolina, just about a year ago, a black guy was pulled over by the cop. He'd been arrested about 20 times. Patriot, you know, served the country. He got out of the car, didn't want to be arrested. He didn't have the money. He had 4 kids running along. If you think back, you might recall it. He was shot in the back 7 times.
Mm-hmm.
Shot in the back.
Executed.
7 times. And what the cop didn't know is that there was a guy walking along the sidewalk that videoed the whole thing. And so the cop was caught in the act, in the process of planting evidence, making it look like the guy was threatening him. He wasn't threatening him in the least. But here's an example, though. In the follow-up investigation, it come out by one of the major medias that about 20% of the people across the country in jail are there because of debtor's prison.
Let me say one more thing about that, okay? I've helped quite a number of people who were the CPS, I don't know what we call them here, Child Protection Services, was going to take their children from them, okay? They knew about me and they would call me up. I used to be my phone, I'd have about 3 phones going at one time when people called and wanted help. So what I started doing, I told the people, I said, look, the first time you get approached by any public servant, immediately demand their oath of office. Immediately, don't hesitate, and their bond. Those guys don't have it, okay? And if they do, if they come up with one, which I've had them do, they'll go and fabricate it. Say, okay, well, thank you very much. Now, it says right here that you promise to protect, support, and defend the Constitution. Here's a copy of it. Show me in there where you have the authority to interfere with my family. Well, what do you mean you can't show me? Well, you have a driver's license on you? I need to see your driver's license. I want his name, his address, because I'm going to file a criminal charge against him. I'm going to assume his private capacity. 42 U.S.C. 1983 makes it very clear. When you act outside the scope of your duty, you're acting privately, not officially. You have no immunity. I'll take everything you got, including your retirement. So this is what you do. You don't let them get away with it. You want them to run away from you, this is how you do it. Mike, I'm going to take one more question. Mike?
Yeah, what we're doing here today in Sarasota County is not unlawful. I totally agree. To pursue remedy and redress of grievance is not unlawful. But these courts and these officials in the just us system is a club. And they are not going to follow the very rules they claim to uphold. What they plan to do, and there is inside information on what they plan to do, is file charges, criminal charges against people that attempt to create a grand jury. And the charge will be a number of different ways. They can charge you with simulating a legal process.
8430855 Florida statute.
Yeah, well, you know them. So, and there are maybe 3 others that they could probably fit and make happen in their just us system. This is the problem. We don't have justice, as we all know. We're preaching to the choir. We all know this. So be ready. Anyone that signs on your document and joins your assembly, if you plan to arrest public officials or conduct a grand jury, be ready to get arrested and to be tied up in a frickin' just us court system where you have no justice.
Mike, let me say
That's
this.
a warning.
Yeah, let me say this, okay? I know what you're saying. You brought up Terry Trussell before. I worked with Terry Trussell for a long time. I wrote a countersuit, which put him on equal footing. He would not be in prison had he went ahead with it. But his wife was scared to death and convinced him to get an attorney. When you get an attorney, you're going to jail. I told him that. He stayed at my house. I fed him. I housed him. We worked. I taught him how to use the system, how to beat them, and then he didn't do it. So he's in jail because of that right now. Okay. But what you're saying, Mike, I do respect you. I remember Mickey. Now you're a truck driver, right?
I had a trucking company.
Okay.
I no longer do.
Okay. But the talk like you're doing right now, I respectfully tell you, you will cause people not to do what they need to do.
I disagree. You're wrong.
Many other people do the same thing. They make that. We have a guy that comes to our meeting in Marion County, he does the same thing. And I just tell him, well, don't do nothing then. You know, I like the guy.
No, that's not the alternative I'm proposing. There is an alternative to what you're doing that's going to get you and a lot of other people tied up in court and in jail.
I'm ready.
Okay, that's all I'm saying. I think you're more valuable out here where you're free. That's my point. I agree with what you want to do. That's a given. I am totally for demanding a common law court, but you're more valuable outside the bars.
What's the alternative?
What's the alternative, she says?
We don't have time right now to discuss it, but if you're interested, see me afterwards and I'll give you my
I promised I
card.
was only going to take one more. This lady got something to say for us.
Yeah, I think we've got to deal.
Yeah.
We've got to sort of detract ourselves from the little and look at the big. And the big is that the Constitution of the United States is what set ordinary individuals free from the encumbrances that imperialists and other powers try to have over them, and made we the people the ones that are free, that are equal. And it is a system worth defending. So, when one has had, as has happened in this country over sort of the last 100 years, steps that took away the equality and so on, one needs to find it in the right place. And you were right, it is in the judiciary, because it is a body of laws. and the place to fight it is there. However, what you are proposing, as far as I understand, is basically just making what is the reliving of part of the Constitution come back to life. And that is one of the means. There are three, I see three solutions. The one is that at ground level, which is county level, have the accountability structures that if people of government step outside the rules, that they can be held accountable. Nobody should be held more accountable than the judiciary, because that is who we the people pay in order to uphold the laws of the government, which is first and foremost the Constitution. So when they fail, I've never had anything to do with police or those kind of people. My concern has been that the judiciary is not holding the Constitution as its first and foremost and not the supremacy clause.
They're not protecting people.
Let me make one final comment because of what you're saying, okay? The Constitution, Article 3, Section 1, says the judicial power shall extend to, or shall be vested in one Supreme Court, okay? And such, remember the word such inferior courts. Now, what does that mean when it says such? Doesn't it call the Supreme Court an inferior court? So what court is there that's a higher power? It's the people's court under common law, the superior court of common law. We can and must, which is what's happening all over this country right now, create those superior courts of common law. Because when you go to the, now let me just say something else. When it says judicial, remember I said define every word. Judicial does not mean judge. Judicial is used several times in the Constitution. Article 3, Section 2, Clause 3 says, the trial of all crimes shall be by jury. It doesn't say judge. Fifth Amendment says no person shall be held to answer for capital or otherwise infamous crime except on presentment or indictment of a grand jury. That Supreme Court rule, writing out the word presentment, did not take presentment out of the Constitution, and it belongs to the people. Seventh Amendment says, in suits of common law where the value of controversy exceeds $20, trial by jury shall be preserved, and no decision of the jury shall be re-examined in any other court in the United States than according to the rules of the common law. Who makes the rules of the common law? Us. Thank you, folks. I appreciate it.
So, we have one other guest here, Marlon. Is there anything you'd like to say?
I guess I can say a few things.